Hello and welcome to Sundance Film Festival and to the Film Music House. I'm happy to welcome two agents and a manager with us today to talk about representation for composers and some of the myths that are out there, and we want to get to the truth of it. So welcome Sarah Kovacs from Kraft-Engel Management. Hello, Sarah.
Hi.
Alexander Vangelos from First Artist Management. Hello, Alex.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. And Tim Husom from Redbird Music. Hello, Tim.
Hello.
Hi. So the first question, if you want to briefly kind of introduce yourself and how you got to where you are today, how you became an agent and manager, and maybe also if you could mention some of the amazing talent you work with. If you want to go first, Sarah.
Sure. Okay, I'll keep this concise. Well, I guess I sort of got bit by the bug when I was at Berkeley studying music business. I had the opportunity to be a student talent buyer at a new all ages, very tiny venue that the college had built. And for some reason, there was this connection for me with booking bands and creating a bill for a night and discovering new artists. And at the same time, you know, sync was really taking off in a way where people's music, you know, you could break an artist on television. So there was this cross section of music and telling a story in a visual way that was so interesting to me. So I kind of knew I needed to come out here and just explore what that was. I sort of thought I'd be a music supervisor, but through some Berkeley, you know, friends and people I knew, I got recommended for an assistant job. It was like my second job out here. A long time ago, I won't say how many years, for a quote eclectic film music agent. And I was like, what am I getting into? But sure enough, that was Richard Kraft. And I just found a home there with Richard and Laura. And you know, by working with them, with the clients that they had at the time and starting to explore, you know, other areas of film music and visual media music through video games and streaming, that became really interesting to me. I started working with a lot of video game composers like Gary Scheinman and Christopher Tin and Austin Wintry. And then streaming became a big thing, and that was also really exciting. So exploring uncharted territory was really cool, and you know, it was something I wanted to do more of, and it's now been a million years, and we're, you know, building a sort of the next gen of composers with my colleagues there, and I love it.
Thank you. Alex, how did you get into becoming an agent?
My story is probably not as exciting or as interesting as Sarah's. I grew up in the business. My father, Boss, has been a composer agent for about 30 years, having started at Gorfain Schwartz and partnering with Richard Kraft for a moment, and then eventually started First Artist Management with a few other agents. And I was out of college, essentially figuring out what I was going to do with my life. And he had asked me to come temp for him and help him out, which turned into a year-long assistant position at FAM. And as I was getting ready to leave to go pursue some other interests, his business fell apart, and the agents that were there with him decided to collude and leave the business. So we went from probably 120 clients to 20 clients overnight. And he said, if you want to be an agent, now's your time to do it. I think I was 22 at the time. So as you can imagine, wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I felt a real responsibility to my dad and to my family to stick by his side. And at the beginning for me, you know, I grew up in the business, hanging out with David Arnold and going to, you know, recording sessions with Craig Armstrong. So I had a real foundation for, you know, what music brought to media, and a real appreciation for that, and had, you know, my entire life, because I was, you know, grew up a part of it. And for me, when I entered the business, I really saw an opportunity fiscally, but I didn't really see the value I could bring to people's lives initially. And I think for me, it really all changed when I ended up getting a guy on a TV series who had never done a TV series before. And for him, it was a life-changing moment. And for me, my drive, like what drives me in life, what, you know, really just, yeah, drives me, it's not really necessarily money. It's more that sort of value that I could bring to somebody's life and create that kind of opportunity for somebody. So for me, that's what's really kept me in the business. And, you know, it's crazy, you know, you blink and here I am close to 7 years later now, as I'll be 29 in 9 days. So it's been a fun little journey, and we work with people from Carter Burwell to Jan Ekstrand, who's doing the new Plasma at Sony, for Daniel Espinosa, Antonio Sanchez, who did Birdman, Torrin Borrowdale just did Lock and Key, Clark, who's doing Pablo Larraín's new series, Lizzie's Story. And that's, it's a good gist. I won't bore everybody too much.
Awesome, thank you. And how about you, Tim?
I don't do agent work, but I straddle the line between musicians that have recording careers and also score film, television, dance, and theater. In 2009, when the economy sort of went down the toilet a little bit, and people were getting their music free from MP3 downloads, a large portion of the music business had to reinvent what they were doing at the time. I was one of them. And so I had this client at the time, Dustin O'Halloran, who had a band that I was managing. And Dustin and I sat down and said, how are we going to survive? And so I was like, we need to get into this film business world, because I just read an article that said nobody's spending entertainment dollars. And when they are spending entertainment dollars, all of that money is going to movies. People are going to the cinema because they want to escape what was in their world by going and seeing a film. And so that sort of, it stuck with me. So I was like, oh, this is what we need to do. There's money in film, right? I don't have to struggle as much, or I didn't think that I had to struggle as much. So I got into film by saying to Dustin, let's figure this out. So he and I figured it out together. We found a film to do because he was a piano player. Got one film, we got two films. And then I met Johan Johansson shortly after that. And then shortly after that, I met Volker Bertelmann, aka Hauschka, at a piano bar in Italy. And so I had my big three composer / musician crossover artists for my roster. And together we just figured out how to navigate the waters of the business in Hollywood. And, I learned how to, hire people like White Bear to educate the industry and how to be looked at in a professional way to get awarded or awards nominations. And so, yeah, so that was my three. And then currently my roster includes Colin Stetson, who's sort of an up-and-coming composer, and A Winged Victory for the Sullen, Adam Wiltsey, Krang. Gosh, that's it. Yeah. So that's my up till today. That's what I do.
And I think it's a pretty cool roster anyway.
Yeah, that's because you're friends with everybody.
So Tim, you talked a little bit about your work as a manager, and then Kraft-Engel Management and First Artist Management are actually called management, but they're really agents. So to start off, can you talk a little bit about the difference between an agency and a management, both legally, what you're allowed and what you're not to do, what the differences are there, but also creatively, if a manager might craft more the career in general, or if you as an agent do that as well, and also if you work together and collaborate, because I know, Tim, you obviously work with agents also. It's in addition to what you do.
Yeah, I'll unpack that first bit, in that what I do is because Kraft-Engel and First Artists, they're also managers. They manage their artists' careers. And from what I understand, they manage them in film and television, dance and theater and gaming, etc. My roster is specific to composers that do a lot more than, not a lot more, do more than just that. They go on tour, right? They produce people's records, they mix people's records, they do all this stuff. And if they didn't have a recording career, like if Dustin wasn't signed to Ninja Tune through Winged Victory and Deutsche Grammophon for his solo stuff, he wouldn't need me. He could just, he and Patty would be just fine, right? But because they have this he has this diversified musical output, he needs somebody like me, a management company like me, which is in addition to the management that he has at the base level for Hollywood and composing stuff, to help him with his assets and his strategy, and also making sure that you know, it's important for us to keep our roots planted in the places that we came from, which is the people that I work with started out as recording musicians and they learned how to be film, television, dance, and theater composers. And it's important to us, and I think it's important to the producers and the directors in the world who come and ask for us to score their films, that we stay true to the sound that we started out doing. And we stay true to like doing live events and all the rest of that stuff. And so management company, sort of a more overall thing, because I know a few composers, you know, that are friends of mine that have no interest in going on tour and have no interest in like, you know, recording records. They love doing film score and they don't need me. Like that would just be a waste of time and money. The legal part, you know, I don't really know. I've actually never been educated in the legal about what I can and what I can't do, manager in California or agent. Like, I don't know the loopholes of that. I've never looked into it. And then the third question was, oh, I often work with agents on synergizing everything. For example, you know, Dustin and Folker are doing an awards push for that movie Ammonite right now with you guys. And, you know, I can't do half of the stuff that I do without their agent being involved in communicating with the studio. And I can't do what I do without you and Chandler, you know, speaking to the studio about certain things and speaking to the press about certain things. But they can't do what I do without me communicating with the soundtrack label, because I have very intimate conversations with them, because our records come out through these certain labels anyways. And so it's as far as education of award stuff and next level PR stuff, public relations stuff goes, I can't do what I do without the agent's help. It's just impossible for me to do that.
How about you, Alex and Sarah? Is it for you also like a team effort and a collaborative effort? And can you maybe talk a bit more about legalities also? And what Tim just mentioned also, you know, helping with live concerts or with album releases, not necessarily soundtrack releases, but solo albums. Do you help with that also, or do you kind of leave that on the side?
Sarah, do you want to go?
Sure. Well, in terms of the legal question, I'm not a lawyer. Disclaimer, not a lawyer. I've never been educated thoroughly about what the official legalities are. I have heard that agents are licensed by the state in which their business is registered to broker deals, and managers aren't, but don't take my word for any of that because I don't know. And the other question was how we work with managers. What was the other question?
Yeah, if you also collaborate as a team, and you know what Tim
Yes.
also said, that you know everyone does his part.
Tim, your answer was so spot on. Yeah, I think there are some composers who have many different facets of their careers, and they do lots of different things. And you know, a lot of them want to bring in specific experts in those different areas. And, you know, I see myself as the expert in music for visual media. I'm not usually involved when a client, you know, has a tour. There are people who know that world so much better than I do. So I'm always like, if it's not your area of expertise, bring someone in who knows what they're doing. But everything kind of feeds and helps promote the other. You know, we all are helping each other out. When a client does want to work on an album, which, you know, during COVID has been such prime creative time when someone's not working on a film or a series or a game, a lot of people, I don't know about you guys, but a lot of our clients have been working on solo albums. And while, you know, I'm not involved in dealing with a label or figuring out how they're going to perform it, I'm definitely sending that music to people who might be inspired by it, where it could work for a film or it could work for something that we're working on. So I feel like all these things are really interconnected. And it's great to have more people to collaborate on. The more hands helping, the better it is, you know, for the composer.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think that, you know, Tim and Sarah have said pretty much what I would say as well. I mean, as far as the legality of it, my understanding, just to clear up that point, my understanding is a manager legally can't procure work for their clients. Agents are, the reason an agent is licensed is that they legally then can procure work. I think somebody said to me recently, in Hollywood, your agent's like the uncle you talk to when, every so often when you need something, and your manager's like your dad. And I thought that was a fairly interesting, way to look at it.
I love it.
I think to
Well,
me,
I'll call you daddy now, Tim.
Yeah, I'll take it.
I think to me in our business, specifically the composer business, I think the lines are probably a little more blurred compared to, let's say, writers, directors, actors, as far as the division of labor goes between like what a manager do, what an agent would do. And I think, in particular, when we're talking about like artist composers, the role of the manager is, much more carved out and clear as far as what that looks like and what they're overseeing. And I think for me, it's great to have, managers that are really on it. And usually the most successful artists have managers that are really on it and have a real clear vision and idea of the types of projects that they think their client, that we should be looking for their client. So I think having that extra piece to help facilitate whatever it may be can be incredibly helpful. And, as far as, solo records and that sort of thing goes, that's not something that we do day to day, but at times I'll get involved in that. Like I had a client recently come to me with a record he wrote. I thought it was fantastic, and I helped him get it, shopped it around to different labels for him, and he eventually found a home in London. And we've got another client who's, putting out a Sony Classics record that we put together as well. So at times we'll do it, but it's not the focus for us. The focus is certainly procuring work and creating opportunities and, overall career guidance and direction.
And Alex, I would imagine that a guy like Clark, who has English management, just from a regional help, I imagine that, those guys would call you up if they needed something in our time zone or they needed something in California, right?
Right, for sure. And I think, like, for example, I think Clark's a good example since he's doing Lies and Story, which is being contracted out of LA here with Warner Brothers and Bad Robot. So it's allowed me to be the on the ground guy day to day, with Warner Brothers and what he needs. And when it comes to the recording sessions and fixing, his manager manages, all that stuff for him as they're recording in London. So, it becomes a great division of labor and a great collaboration as far as, I think, the record label, the manager, the publisher, and the publicist. I think when everybody's in sync, and there's certain people we have like monthly, hey, let's all get on a call together because there's so many moving pieces. It's important we're all on the same page and really know what's going on so everybody can be in the loop and be working together.
Hey, I have a question actually for Sarah. I manage a couple of clients that are at Kraft-Engel, and
Yeah.
I'm always impressed with the legal muscle at Kraft-Engel. And I would imagine.
AKA Laura Engel.
No. This is actually like, I like
impresses me.
I like the savviness of how things get done there from a legal perspective. I would imagine that as a composer watching this, they are asking or wondering, like, how does if I get an agent, who handles the legal stuff, and how does that legal person help me with my career? So maybe you can touch on that, because I'm interested.
Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, I'm not muted. So we don't have in-house lawyers, and we ourselves are not lawyers. Most of our clients have their own third-party attorneys that we are very friendly with and very close with. And just like your publicist, your manager, the people on the team, the legal part of it is really important. Not everyone chooses to use their lawyer on every single contract, but we have a policy where anytime a piece of paper comes to us, we send it to our client right away and we say, hey, here's a contract. We are not lawyers. Would you like to send this to your attorney? If not, how would you like to handle it? And so if they decide not, if it goes to the lawyer, we collaborate with the lawyer, make sure that they have all the deal terms, like the broad strokes, bullet points of what we've agreed to. And that's usually either done on the phone or in writing. And then they'll review it and then talk to the client and talk to us about, hey, this doesn't look right, or you could probably live with these things, but let me know what you think. And then they do the legwork back and forth, and they kind of CC us and keep us in the loop until it's signed and closed. If a client chooses not to have an attorney look it over, we will put our eyes on it, but we always remind our clients that we are not lawyers. I did not go to law school, nor did I take the bar. So we do our best and we make sure that the deal terms are in there and they're correct. And then we'll tell them, this is a tricky spot. It's not my area. I really still think you should have someone look at it. And at the end of the day, it's the client's choice what they want to do. And we get in writing from them a sign off of, no, I'm happy, I'll sign it. Or yeah, okay, let's have so-and-so look at it. Some projects are passion projects, a 20, 25K indie film they're really excited about and they don't care about the money and they really want to do it. That might be an instance where they make the personal choice to not have a lawyer look at it. We always recommend every client have an attorney look at everything just to be safe. But it's important to us that our clients are protected, and we're really clear about communicating to them how that happens and what the next steps are and what decisions they need to make.
The team is getting bigger and bigger, from agent, manager, publicist, lawyer, European agent.
It's a party.
It's a party, but it is a collaboration, of course. So one of the stories I often hear out there when talking to composers is, I'm told, don't ever contact an agent or a manager. When the time is right, they will contact you. And I don't know what to think about it, because as a publicist, I would say, no, if you want to find an agent, just contact them, because there's so many people out there. You cannot rely on an agent finding you unless, you run a huge campaign or something. So what's your take on that? Should clients contact you if they want to be represented by you, or should they wait until you contact them?
I'll start on this one. I think, to me, if there's a film or a series that's going to be a hot commodity in our space, that's going to be an easy sell in our space, you can, rest assured, some agent's going to reach out to you. And, if you're, I don't like the idea of saying never reach out. I like connecting with people. I like meeting people. And when people reach out to me, I'm always going to respond to people and give people the time of the day, because I know what it's like not getting the time of day and just getting ignored. So to me, I think fortune favors the bold. You got to reach out to people and go for it. At the very least, it may not happen at that moment, but at least you got a connection and a conversation that started. And perhaps at some point down the line, there's an opportunity to collaborate. But I think in general, as much as music matters in our business, credits matter a lot as well, if not more. And it's the reality is, if you do a film or series that does well, people will be calling.
Yeah, I would totally agree with Alex. I would hate to say to someone, I don't think it's smart to wait for anything that you want in life to come knocking on your door. It's just not my perspective on things. I do think that there is sort of a special moment, at least for us, where someone's really ready for an agent. It definitely could be that hot commodity, as Alex said, that it's like, ooh, this thing is really popular. Is this person have someone? And then everyone starts calling them. But I think there is that moment where it's harder to launch a career when there isn't that special thing that everyone's talking about, that buzzworthy thing where I could call up a head of music or call a music supervisor or a producer and say, hey, I saw you're making this thing. Have you heard this score? And they know what I'm talking about.
Right.
So for us, there kind of needs to be that in place, but not always. There's a composer I started working with a couple years ago who has probably asked me for a meeting a million times, and other people have said, hey, you should meet so-and-so. And I just didn't feel like we were right for each other at that moment. And then I finally met him in person. I bumped into him at a thing. I had never really spoken to him, it was just emails. And I just we fell in love with each other. And it was like, okay, fine. Jesus, you're so freaking charismatic. Okay, we're gonna get together. And it turned out that his music was fantastic, and he just has this charisma, and his career is totally taking off now. It was one of the best decisions we both made. So there's no formula, there's no exact, this is how you do it. Everyone comes with something different. Everyone has different experiences and they bring something different to the table. So it's hard, but I would definitely say the one rule you can go by is, if there is something you want, don't wait for it to happen.
I'm going to give you my dad perspective now, which is a little bit different from what Sarah and Alexander said. Same, but different. Going back to like my approach to educating my young composers in being recognized to be nominated for award stuff. I've had quite a bit of success in the last 5 years with some of my clients getting nominated for things. And it doesn't come out of left field. It doesn't come out of nowhere. So you need the help of the studio and you need the film to do well, but the industry and the people that pay attention to the music have to already take you seriously, right? They already have to know this person is taking himself seriously enough for me to be able to tick that box that says, I want this person to be going forward. So as a young composer, I would think, this is what I would tell somebody that, I work with, if I was going to go call Alexander or Sarah to try to get a meeting, before you do anything, even if you have a hot shot TV show or film, you have to set up your places to where Alexander and Sarah, when they look at your thing, because the first thing they're going to do is they're going to go online, they're going to look at your IMDb page, they're going to look at your website, they're going to look at your places. It has to look super pro. Because if those two, as professional agents, don't think that you're taking yourself seriously, there's going to be a pause. And sometimes that pause is hard to make go away, no matter what you do. And then you might not be able to get the right agent or the perfect agent that you want to have. I mean, of course, if you just keep kicking butt and like making great music and doing big projects, yeah, that's going to help a lot. But the early stuff, got to take yourself seriously and you got to clean up your own places. I like to say it is like, make sure your own backyard is tidy before you go into anybody else's backyard.
Well, I think it's very similar also with publicity. A lot of clients, it's not always the right project, and also with you, Tim, we often discuss, and it's not always the right moment, it's not always the right project, and I would not want a client to spend money on something where we feel like this is not the right time or we couldn't deliver. However, I appreciate composers contacting us and then staying in touch, because the right project will come when it's worth spending the money and to collaborate. And I would think it's the same with you. It's kind of nice to stay in touch then and be contact, or and then I'm sure having a film at Sundance is a great opportunity also to be talked about as a composer. Another story of me here is, and I think it's not really justified, a lot of composers say, well, agents, you really don't need an agent. The only thing they do for you is negotiate, but they don't get your work. And I've seen all three of you. We work with all three of you, and I know how hard you work and your connections with studios and crafting careers. So if you can talk a little about that myth also.
That's my favorite myth.
All right, well, let me start this one because
Go for it.
I'm going to sort of create a foundation because I'm not an agent. What I am is a team builder, right? And in my experience, in my years in the music/film business, I don't try and pretend to do everything. Like Sarah said earlier, it's about strengths and weaknesses. It's my job to create a team of professionals that do their job at a high level, right? And so if you have a whole team of people that are doing their job at a high level, then it's ridiculous to say that, if Alexander and I were working on something, that I could do a better job than he could do. It's just ridiculous because he's doing what he does because he excels at a high level. I suck at being an agent. I know I do, but I'm good at team building. So I have 2 different lawyers. I work with 6 different agents because I don't want to do any of this stuff. I'm too busy like making sure that everybody is given the information and given the tools for them to do their job. And then it's up to them to be professional about it. So I disagree with that logic that you don't need an agent, because I feel like you can get away with it, but it's too much work.
Sarah, you said you love that myth. So do you want to chime in here?
I see what we do as this collaboration. It's a partnership with our clients. And I mean, I suppose if someone's like, I don't need an agent, maybe they actually don't. Maybe maybe they don't have a lot of projects that need, servicing. Maybe, I don't know, like not everyone's at that place where they're ready for one, but there are very few people in our business where the phone rings for them all the time, constantly, where the work is coming inward. We very much, it's happening both ways. The phone is ringing, and then we're also on the other ear calling our people we have relationships with, the studios, producers, music supervisors, etc., finding out, what are you guys working on, or reading about stuff, and then calling to when the time is right, and talking about, who are you going to need for this? How are you going to handle that thing? So, I mean, all we're doing, it's research and it's relationships. And that's how we have the information we have to go to our clients and say, hey, they're making this thing, they're looking for this, you'd be perfect for it. Let's put together a reel. I mean, we're doing that all day long. It could be that idea, the myth is out there because maybe someone's had a bad experience with someone in the past. That's possible, but I see it as a partnership. Everyone's got to be, pedaling at the same time,
Right.
To get the best results. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with Sarah and I'm with Tim as well on that. I mean, I think it is such a partnership, and I think part of the composer-agent relationship, it's really intimate in a way. I mean, you really develop intimate relationships with the people that you work with, and I'm sure Tim could say the same for his clients as a manager. So to me, it really is a partnership and a real team effort as far as creating that vision that both people believe in, and going out there executing to hopefully create that vision and make it into a reality. I get why people feel that way at times, and I think the reality is it just goes back to timing as well. And I don't think if you're not in a place where you're that sellable and you're sitting on a roster, and that's where I think that myth probably comes from, where it's like our business is difficult. It's difficult to get work even for the top people in our business. It's still difficult to get work for them. So I get it, but at the same time, I think the reality is if you've got something to sell, there's no way you're going to be able to do it on your own at a wide scale level. In my eyes, there's probably one composer in our business who really doesn't need an agent, probably a business manager or a lawyer, Hans Zimmer, and maybe. And, to me, other than that, having somebody in your corner when push comes to shove, when things get hairy on a film and things are difficult and people are trying to take advantage of you, whatever it may be, I think having somebody who has strong relationships and has your best interest in mind at every step of the way is important, not only in business, but I think in life as well. So having that team around you that Tim references, I think is key to building a long career and having great support behind you so you're not going to burn out and you're not dealing with stuff that you shouldn't be dealing with. And I think most importantly, business and creative should be kept as separate as possible. With my clients, and I know I've heard Laura say this, Engel say the same thing, like when money's brought up, they don't talk about it. It is purely creative, and that's how it should stay, because once the money starts getting involved and negotiations and the composer's having to talk to the director and the producer about the fee and the rights, it muddies the waters fairly quickly. So I think having that separation is imperative to maintaining great creative relationships.
Yeah, I have a question. Sarah, for everybody watching, the agent that I work with at Kraft-Engel is named Jeff Jernigan. So when Jeff and I talk about projects, he often talks about I think you have a weekly think tank meeting where ideas are shared. So and I think that I'm accurate in saying that, let's say somebody calls for, I don't know, whenever your big shot clients are, and that person is in the middle of 3 projects already. Isn't there kind of a trickle down suggestion thing that happens to your smaller clients?
I think it depends on the situation. We actually meet daily, and we talk about new projects every day. So if someone needed to pass on something, I think it depends on a few things. Who are the producers involved? Who are the filmmakers, and what did they need? And this is such a good question, because there's something Alex said that reminded me more about how agents are also managers, and why someone would need, the things that we do, the value that we bring is a lot of times the importance is really understanding yes, of course, protecting the client, but also it's understanding things that they might not be hearing or seeing, or stuff that they're not, privy to help maybe keep them on a project and to save them from themselves in a way that they just aren't aware. So that was another thing that you just reminded me of. But yeah, it depends on who are the players and what do they need. It's not who needs a job, it's what are the needs of the film or the series, and who else has, because everyone has relationships and they cross over. There could be 3 or 4 people who have worked with this one person. So it's who are the relationships involved, style wise, what is the tone of this thing, what kind of music do they need, why did they ask for a big shot guy, what is it about the scores that they reference that they do, and who also does that. So it's a combination of different things. Yeah. But our priority really is what is going to fit the needs of this project.
That's cool. Hey, I have actually one more question, Thomas, if you don't mind.
Please, yeah.
Alexander, back in the day, I worked with your pops for a little bit, and he and I had a conversation about the art of collaboration, and that always stuck with me. And sometimes when I get calls from young composers that are asking me for tips, right, I'll often refer to that conversation I had with Voss about, sometimes if you feel like you're stuck and you don't know how to move forward, what about collaborating? But as an agent, do you feel like that takes anything away from your clients to start working with somebody else? Or what's your take on that?
I think it really depends. I think to me, it's more about what the needs are of that individual person. Like if somebody's looking to expand their horizons outside of the film and TV and music space, I think it's a fantastic idea. And I think, Tim, you could probably, that better than anybody, and nowadays, filmmakers are looking for interesting, unique ideas. Not always. I think there's always going to be a place for the traditional composer, but I think the writing's on the wall. It's pretty clear. Unique ideas are being hired. Interesting artists, and musicians are being hired on films and TV series. So, I think it depends on what somebody wants to do. If somebody's, I always say if somebody's getting a manager and they're just a composer looking for more work, to me, that's when I think it becomes a bit redundant and the separation of powers get a little muddy. Granted, I know legally managers can't procure work, but I think some probably do in our business. Not to say you.
Yeah, what made me think of that is I did get a call from Laura Engel once, and there was some project that came up that Danny Elfman was thinking about being a part of, but the producer director wanted some other sliver of something in there. And so she was like, oh, your client Adam Wiltz would be a perfect combination for this. Would he be opposed to collaborating? It didn't work, but I appreciated that, because she said that she came out of a meeting and they're like, oh, Jeff said that Adam is the right guy, and I listened to his music and it turns out it was. I appreciated that as a manager, that kind of proactive thinking goes into agent work.
Yeah, one of the advantages of our company is that we have 6 agents and everyone comes with a specific set of ideas that are different. Jeff could be thinking about something that's hasn't even crossed my brain, and then he says an idea and we're like, oh, that was an amazing idea. And then whoever is running point on that project goes and pitches that person, and that's how it works. So even though everyone has their point agent, like their day-to-day person, everyone is a collective client of the agency, and everyone gets pitched on. Everyone's helping each other out and sharing. Not one person has the answers to everything, and so collaboration and sharing ideas is how we get the best results.
Yeah, and working with you guys, I can see that with both your companies, with Kraft-Engel, but also with First Artists, with Sabrina, Alex, and Hamish, that, it's basically, I feel like, you kind of get a team, and that's what we also like at Whitebear, where I feel you need several brains so you don't get stuck. I have one more question that is a bit more Sundance specific and that I often hear at Sundance. There's so many indie composers that might go to Sundance, like they have a film there every year, or then sometimes 3 movies or 4 movies. And then they want to get out of that indie world. They want to switch gears. They don't want to be pigeonholed in there, and they want to maybe do, a video game, or they might want to do a bigger studio film, but they feel like they're stuck in the indie world, or it could be any genre. So how can you as representatives support an artist to kind of get out and not be pigeonholed, and then maybe move into like Benny Benzi and Sander Urian's are good examples, who have done tons of Sundance films, and now they do, start at Ozark and do a lot of television, and then, higher budget films. But how can you support there?
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, it's about, I think in general going, I think obviously you're talking about a segue as far as a career goes. I think just that collaboration between client and agent, as far as, okay, if the direction's going to shift and this is the new direction, then what's the game plan to get there, right? So if we're talking about an indie composer who's doing indie films that are going to Sundance, it's a great place to be, really. And you hope, my overall hope in that situation is one of them's going to do well and sell to a Fox Searchlight or something, a distributor that's going to give it a great, give it great visibility, and then give me ammunition to work with. Now, if we're talking about like doc films that go to Sundance, I think it's a different conversation. But let's just say we're talking a mix of doc and narrative films that are indie that go to Sundance, and none of them ever really break out and get any real visibility, and the music never really gets noticed when it comes to Hollywood Reporter and Variety and Deadline, etc. So you've got a body of work that is not where you want to be, and you want to shift gears. I think it just comes down to hard work, right? I mean, you hope that some of the relationships that you've cultivated through the films and the projects you've done, you hope some of those people are working on other things that, maybe are more in the lane that you want to go into, in which case you can pursue those, directly. And simultaneously, I think it's the job of the composer and the agent to go, okay, here's the new direction. Let's start focusing on these projects. Let's start putting music together. Let's start, identifying some films and filmmakers you want to be working with. Let's reach out to managers. Let's write notes. Let's get creative. And then it comes down to, hopefully one of those avenues is the avenue that creates that opportunity and the door opens. So there really is no one right answer, unfortunately.
I happen to think that getting pigeonholed is another one of those myths. I think that's a problem that is something that may worry a composer, but it's not a problem yet, I think also if you're early in your career and you're doing a lot of indie films and you're like, oh, when am I going to ever get my break? It will come. Just keep working. I think it's really special. We celebrate when clients have projects at Sundance, big ones and little ones. And I love that every year people have a couple things there consistently. That's a good thing. You don't get, when it comes to a small independent film, there is no bigger visibility than a festival like Sundance. So we celebrate that. And our clients do too. I would say that, whenever there's a new director directing a big Marvel film or, a big studio movie, they once directed an indie film, and they probably did several. So I think it's important to stick with your filmmakers, especially when you've done several. It's not about the first film you've done with them. It's about the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth and the sixth. That's your director. That's your filmmaker. And it's important to stick with them, especially if they're consistently at Sundance. That means they're making something special and they're onto something. So I think there's a patience game and having a little bit of faith that when you walk off the edge of the boat, that there will be something there, to catch your footing. And sure, maybe there is a composer who's done like 50 horror films and they would love to not do horror. Absolutely. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. Like Alex said, we come up with a plan. For us, sometimes that means, all right, well, let's show the world you can write something other than horror music. And let's not wait for that film to come along to hire you, because it's the chicken or the egg thing, So let's write some demos. Let's grab some scenes from something and write you take, what's your take on that? And then we share that as a proof that this person can totally do this. Let's try it. So you come up with a plan for that. But I think having films at Sundance, especially when you're starting out, and independent film is really special. So to me, it's such a good place to be.
That's why you're the pros. I love it. You know, Mythbusters, 100%. Like I totally agree with the Mythbusters, the idea. And, you know, Alex, I think that you totally nailed it on the head when you said hard work, because it is about hard work. It is about being like, I have this saying that I tell people about, luck is earned. It's not given to you in life. It just doesn't. Like you can say, oh, how lucky are you? It's BS every single time. You have to go and you have to earn it. And as a manager, if my client and I wanted to push past a certain level, I would try to get them an agent with First Artist or Kraft-Engel, and I would absolutely have them save a chunk of dough, and when the momentum is at the right spot, have them call Tomas and say, let's put together an educational plan in Hollywood so these people treat us seriously, because that's what it all comes down to, I think.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, Tim. I do believe that luck you create, it doesn't just come to you. I think you create opportunity and luck, and it's often hard work. And what we see at the end is luck. There was so much work behind it. To finish it off, last question, each of you. I'm just interested, what does success mean to you? If you can give me one example as an agent, as a manager in the business world. How do you see success? Does it mean if a client wins an award, if you get a great deal, but what does it mean? What, you know, personally also to you guys in your work? If you want to start, Tim, maybe.
Sure. Well, this is very personal then. Yeah, it's actually a pretty easy answer. You know, when I sit down with, I'm going to say the guys, because they're all guys. When I sit down with the guys and I say, what do we, because we have this thing where try to do every year, we come up with these altitude lists. What are we going to do with 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, which means that what are we going to do in the next year? What are we going to do in the next 3 years? What are we going to do in the next 10 years? When we have a year in review and we look back and we say, wow, we accomplished all of the things in our 1-year altitude plan, or well, look how far we've come in our 3-year altitude plan. Like when Johan was still alive, and, you know, when we first met, you know, we sat down and he was really interested in getting into the awards, internationally recognized film world. And after 3 years, we had accomplished all that stuff. And for me, that's success, is that I, as a manager, was able to help facilitate my client's dreams, right? Because that made him happy. And so I think that as a dad, like my 9-year-old daughter, what makes me happy is when she gets to realize her dreams, when she gets to do the things that make her happy, when I hear her laugh, it's the same thing. But management, like, yeah, I guess that's my answer.
Thank you. Sarah, do you want to chime in?
Sure. Well, I guess as an agent, success with my clients varies because each of them have a different set of needs and a different set of goals. I have to say, when you book someone on their first big, it might not be their first ever project, but like something really good, oh, it feels awesome. Especially when you're working so hard to launch a career and build that momentum. It feels really good when you book someone on their 3rd or 4th thing and they're the type of person who likes to juggle a couple projects at once and they're feeling really good about it. And that, you know, firing on all cylinders feels great. Problem solving, tricky situations, saving a client from not getting fired always feels awesome. I mean, it feels freaking horrible when you're in it because things aren't going well. But then when you come out the other side, that feels really great. So I think it's, for some people, it's financial. They define it in a financial way. Others is how, you know, the music that they wrote that year and how they feel about that and how it's been received. I think it's different. And there's no, awards is another thing that's really important to some people. And then I have other people who could not give a shit. So it's so personal to that person, and being able to stick with that person and see a thing along and grow just feels awesome. And then personally, success for me is, you know, putting in a really hard day's work in and then coming home and being able to have dinner with my family and put my kid to bed. The one thing about COVID that I have been extremely grateful for, while I miss seeing people, is being able to be home more and to actually be able to, be a very hands-on mom. So, but other people may be so bummed about, oh, I miss going to premieres and dinners, and I miss those things too. But I think success is just different for different people.
Thanks for sharing that, Sarah.
I'll do my best not to be redundant, because I think the two of them, spoke very eloquently about what success looks like in our business. I think there's obviously the minor wins that Sarah was mentioning, that not minor, just the more immediate wins in the moment that, are incredibly fulfilling and exciting and really drive us as, agents and managers. And then I think for me, really how I would define success, I think Sarah's right. It is different for everybody, whether it's fulfilling somebody's vision for their own career. I think to me, it's more of just a broader thing as far as like fulfilling somebody's vision for their life, right? Like being on projects they want to be a part of, financially supporting their family, buying homes. I had a client call me last year. Thanks to you, I bought a home this year. For me, that is success. That is the ultimate success, being able to impact somebody's life like that in a positive way and help them build a career for themselves, and in turn, build one for myself. That's success. And I think for me, more than anything, it's easy to get caught up in the moment and easy to forget the journey. And that to me is like the real success. It's, one of my first clients I ever signed, his name was Michael Gatt, and he came to me with one short film he had done for the Minions franchise. And we ended up turning that into like 6 short films, a series on a series on sci-fi. He's doing 2 animated Batman films now, and DC superhero girls at Warner Brothers. We started, I was 22 when he walked into the door, met with me, and he was like, we went for it together. And over the past 7 years, we've had this incredible journey. We now have this incredible friendship and brotherhood and love for each other. So for me, that's what drives me. It's like the relationship that I have with those people, and the fun that we have, and the challenges and the wins and the losses and all of it. That's what makes it great.
I forgot one.
Please.
Being on this panel with the 3 of you is a huge win for me. So thank you.
So sweet.
I was just thinking, just listening to the 3 of you and Alex, it just makes me happy listening to you guys and sharing your passions. And it's just such a pleasure talking to you. And there's a million more questions, but I think we already ran over the time we said. I will now call you uncle, aunt, and dad, I guess.
So that's sticking. I'm glad that stuck.
It's stuck. And I think after this video will be shown at Sundance, you'll get a lot more Uncle Alex. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks for sharing your wisdom, your insights, and your knowledge. Thank you.